How you doing today, folks? So before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to all the new subscribers. Every day we continue to grow little by little, and I appreciate you all from the bottom of my heart. Secondly, we'll be doing a $1,000 giveaway for a $1,000 knife when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So definitely subscribe, like to the video, and stay tuned for that because it's going to be something absolutely crazy. Now, as everybody's been on the part of this channel for a while, they know I like big, bruiser, beastly, overbuilt customs and productions and all sorts of different things, right? But what a lot of people don't know is that this is my favorite knife. This spyderco chaparral, which I got off of Blade Forums for $62. You can find them retail with the raffir noble scales for, I think it's about $120, is my favorite knife. As you can see, we got plenty of use on it, plenty of love on it, plenty of little scratches here and there. Before we get started, though, I hear a lot of people talk about these raffir noble scales scratch super easy. I have not experienced that. Plenty of fingerprints, definitely fingerprint magnet, but there's not really any scratches. There's some light ones towards the pivot where I took it apart and I ran the fucking driver across it, but that's really about it, and that would scratch titanium, to be very clear. But anyways, so this is generally a 2.5 to 3 finger knife, just barely. With the choil, it is a solid 3. My pinky is nowhere near on it, could not ever be on it. But in this little piece, it locks right here into my palm, and it just becomes an absolute scalpel. I carry this knife with me every single day, no matter what. I rotate a whole bunch of bigger knives, custom knives as my primaries. But see, this is my secondary, and it's my secondary when I really want to get down and dirty with something. When I really just want to whoop the fuck out of something. When I need to process tons of cardboard or do any number of things. This is my absolute go-to. This thing is an absolute laser beam. This piece has probably processed 5,000 or 6,000 pallets of cardboard over the course of the years that I've had this knife. Now, I speak a lot about the Spyderco Manix 2 as being an absolute workhorse, and it definitely is. It is a bit more comfortable in hand. It does cut, well, it doesn't cut as good, but this is CTS 204, CTS XHP, and this is S110V. So the edge retention of what this is and this is night and day. This has been sharpened probably 20 or 30 times. This has been sharpened never. I have chips on the edge and some other stuff, but it's never needed to actually be sharpened. It still cuts. But when I really need to go to work, and I know I'm going to need to go to work, this is just the piece that I carry. It isn't that the bigger knives don't perform the same thing this little one does. Sometimes they perform it better, but it becomes an extension of your hands. You can see I don't even have this finger on it. I can lock it if I want to, but more often than not, I'm just doing this. And it becomes an absolute extension of my hand, and I can get very precise, very detailed, very fast cuts without any worried about cutting myself or missing a line. And that is something that is absolutely wonderful. Now mind, if you have smaller hands, this might not quite fit the same thing for you. It might not nestle so cleanly into the palm. It might not fit so perfectly. So even if I hold this knife with 2 fingers, with just a thumb and a pointer finger, it still locks in and it still holds just fine. In almost every grip with fingertips or, anything in between the lines, it holds. And I love it. Now, I have not sharpened this knife in about 3 months. Because of the thin steel, the thin behind the edge, and the edge geometry overall, it slices like nothing. It punctures like nothing. It goes in like absolute nothing. So, as far as my normal categories, which are going to be the blade, the handle, the carry profile, as well as the philosophy of use, we're going to keep this real simple. The blade, I've never had better. This leaf-shaped blade, for whatever reason, I can't tell if it's just because it's a relatively thinner knife or what the case may be, it just cuts perfectly. I've never had a better cutting knife, another cleaner cutting knife. It just runs through absolutely flawlessly. As far as the opening, or the action, so to speak, I was just playing with this. One second. I was just messing with this knife, trying to break it down for my buddy Scott, and my fingertips are all bruised, so if I can't actuate this knife, there's a reason why. Normally speaking, when my hands are completely fucked, I press this button, I whip my hand down, this stops at about right there, and I close it. So even though it's a back lock, it's very fidget friendly. It's very fun to do. If I can keep on getting it. There we go. So it has the fidget factor down. It has smooth, interesting deployment. It has that lock down perfectly. Ergonomics, to me, this knife should not work, but it does. And it works perfectly. I really and truly have no qualms with the ergonomics of this knife. So not only is the blade the best cutting thing I've ever had, not only is it an absolute breeze to sharpen with this very clean leaf shape profile to it, it's, again, an ergonomic home run. The action, even though it's a backlog, is an ergonomic home run. It all fits very well. Also, because this knife is so small, to get it from right here to right here, it just feels supernatural in hand. Again, I can't actually with this backlog. My hands are fucked right now. Now, as far as the actual carry profile, I carry this in my fifth pocket. And for that purpose, it fits just fine. I normally do not use the clip. Though prior to this review, I definitely used the clip quite a bit to see how I liked it. And Spyderco's wire clip, it's always a beautiful thing. I'm not a huge Spyderco guy, to be clear. I have a couple other knives. I've had probably 30 or 40 of them over the years. I've kept 2. So I'm not a huge fanboy of Spyderco, but this knife really is fantastic. Also, the edge to handle ratio, as you can see there, is perfect. It's not so close as you can nick your finger or pull it out with your fingertip or anything like that, but it's just enough to where you get every usable piece you want to. Now, I could nitpick this knife and I could make it sound bad, but honestly, none of those nitpicks matter. At the end of the day, this is a knife that fits so perfectly in my hand, so ergonomically sound in my hand, that performs the basic tasks. I can't talk. That performs the basic tasks of being a knife so perfectly that I can't help but absolutely love it. So a couple size comparisons before we finish this whole thing up. This is a Paraco, what the hell? Spyderco Paramilitary 2. There's a Griptilian. Here is a Smock on loan. So it's definitely a small knife. The PM2 is not a huge knife. The Smock is very much not a huge knife, and so is the Griptilian. None of those are particularly huge knives. But this piece, in my humble opinion, outworks them all. Whoever designed this piece, and I'm not clear who did, they worked an ergonomic marvel. It made somebody with smaller hands be able to hold this just fine, and somebody with my size hands to be able to hold this just fine. And that alone is something that is absolutely worthy of praise. So my overall score on the Spyderco Chaparral, to be clear, in the Raffir Noble pattern, I am not a fan of the lightweight, but if you like light knives, it's light. This is pretty damn light as is. One second before we finish up here. Just want to give a quick idea. As you can see, very light knife. The lightweight version of it is under 2 ounces. But anyways, with all that being said, my overall review score of the Spyderco knives, Chaparral, and the Raffir Noble pattern is going to be a 10. Now, given what I've said, that should really surprise nobody. I just don't have any complaints with this knife. Now, this opening hole has a little bit of a burr on it that irritates my finger just a little bit. But again, nitpick. This jimping, it doesn't quite lock in your finger perfectly. It definitely is functional, but it's not the most ideal thing. But again, nitpick. The clip, the way it slides in, it doesn't have the best retention, primarily because of how slick these scales are. But again, never fell out of my pocket. It's a nitpick. The general consensus, I can't talk, of this knife is a 10. It is perfect. I love it. It's been used. It's been abused. It's held up against it all. It's a breeze to sharpen. It really kind of is my grail. As Metal Complex puts it, the Excalibur. It's a knife that I expected to hate when I first got it, but I just can't. I just really can't. So a lot of people have asked what my favorite knife is. I'm sorry, folks. It isn't a Medford. It isn't a custom. It's a regular, old, shitty Spyderco chaparral production that somehow just manages to blow even a picky motherfucker like me completely away. So if you have any stipulations or reservations about picking up this knife, don't. Just don't. Just grab it. Once you hold it in hand and you actually work with it, you'll understand. If you don't like smaller knives, believe me, give it a shot. To any review channels that are watching, if you would like to borrow this knife, by all means let me know. My email is Lanphere, Lanphere 1988 at hotmail.com. I'll go ahead and link that in the description as well if anybody wants to go ahead and borrow this. I want everyone to experience this knife and to understand why it is so great. In my humble opinion, it's an ugly little sucker and it should not work the way it does, but it does, and I love it. So as always, folks, I love you all very, very much. Thank you for your time. Your likes, support, subscribes, or comments to mean the absolute world to me. And have a great, fantastic, and wonderful day, and take care.